Hello and welcome to a new episode of Turing Boundaryless podcast. I'm your host, Irina Stetska, an AVP of Sales here at Turing, and I'm extremely excited to welcome here today our guest, Mr. Kai Du, who is the Director of Engineering here at Turing, leading our AI and machine learning team. And Kai is here today to share his personal story, give us some tips about engineering leadership, and most importantly, tell us about how Turing is using AI to match our clients with the world's untapped human potential. Hi, Kai, welcome. We are very happy to have you here today.
Oh, thanks, Arina, and thanks for your introduction for me. And I'm also very excited to be here to share my personal story and also what we've been doing at Turing. Very exciting stuff.
First of all, Kai, very excited having you here with us. And to start off, why don't you share a little bit of your personal story, how you started your career, and ultimately what brings you here?
Sure, I will share a few of my personal stories about why I kind of moved to United States, or why I even come here to the very Silicon Valley. Then I start to explore different opportunities, through my career.
Absolutely.
So let's move the time back to my kind of first year in my college. Well, I was an undergrad at a university in Shanghai. So at that time, Google was kind of still relatively small. This is in the early 2000, where Google just started to explore the international kind of markets. And there's a few kind of founding engineers happened to visit my campus. I was in my fresh year. So we happened to be in the same room, and they were trying to recruit engineers. And that's actually my first time to have this in-person experience to talk with the engineer from Silicon Valley. That was a super, unique experience. As a fresh engineer, I was eager to learn things, and I happened to learn about this fantastic way of making this happen, like Google search back then. So that was probably the first time I started thinking, maybe in future I probably should, if I have a chance, right? I probably should go to United States and probably study or work there. And then fast forward, after a few years, indeed I started to get a chance to move to States, where I did my grad school at Rice University, right? So I was doing my research. Then it happened to be the case where there's a good job in the Silicon Valley as I moved here. So then fast forward to the time where you mentioned about the Facebook time. Mm-hmm. So after a few working for a few years, I started to realize that probably I want to try something new. And then I started to I landed a job in Facebook. So I thought it was just a typical job. But it's very interesting. For instance, after I joined Facebook, right, the first week we got a chance to have this one-on-one with, the famous Mark Zuckerberg. So we got this weekly Q&A session. I remember I got a chance to say hi to him, although it wasn't really a meaningful conversation. But this is so different from the traditional company where there's a very strict hierarchy, things are isolated. I start to realize this type of transparency, this type of down-to-earth attitude, where I think is really an eye-opening experience. And I would say that all my current experience or the skills, a large portion of them actually I learn or experience back to my Facebook time. So I think we probably can go deeper in this part if you want.
That's an incredible story, Kai. Thank you for sharing. And it's amazing that you got to work at Facebook in those early days and learn there. And then after Facebook, you joined Zoox, which is a very different company. How was it for you, and why did you make that decision?
Okay, so this will probably explain what I did back to Facebook time. Then let's probably connect us with my Zoox time. So I stayed at Facebook for roughly 5 years, from 2014 to 2019. At that time, I would say the company wasn't that small when I was in the company. But looking back, yes, I would say it's still much smaller than what it is right now.
Absolutely.
So I started as just an individual contributor working on some applied machine learning topics back then. Over the time, I started to got exposed to different things, right? I learned how we use machine learning or data to build a better product. I learned how we can basically from just work by myself, start to lead a few engineers, then lead a team. And also sometimes I lead a very big project across different teams at the time. But then I started to feel that my own personal exploration start to slow down. I think that's some signal I would say probably I should go out of my comfort zone.
Yes.
And then the other part will be I started to say that probably a self-driving car was something I feel excited about that because it was bring some really the benefit the value to our society. I say probably I can try to apply what I learned or what I kind of experienced to a new I would say playground. I'll put it this way. There's a match there. Okay, Zoox was looking for someone who is experienced, who know how to build a applied machine learning system or infrastructure. I was the type of person I kind of have the experience, but then I'm looking for some new challenges. That was a match. Then I decided, okay, probably I should make this move. Then I decided to move to Zoox, and that's what I kind of make that decision.
That's a great story, Kai, and it sounds like you've always been passionate about world-changing technology and as well as AI and machine learning. And so now you are in your next stage of your career working for Turing. So what brought you here?
Wow, Turing. I feel this is probably something I really want to spend some time to explain, like my choices or why I'm here. I think there's a few layers of things. I think first layer was similar, like a pattern when I decided to join Zoox, because along the way, I started to got exposed to more like things, interesting or valuable things. We talk about the data, we talk about machine learning, right? And also, I also realized probably there's something I have a kind of very kind of broad interest. I mean, if we talk about technical term, right? I started work on the machine learning stuff, then I work on the product. Then in between, I work on the data engineer. I also work as a machine learning infrastructure. And also I got exposed to different industry. I think that's probably my pattern where, as you mentioned, probably I like to kind of trying to do something new, always challenging myself. Like I work on the social network, then move to a self-driving car, and also I work on the e-commerce briefly. And now I'm trying to try something new. And
so very cutting edge, every time very cutting edge technology.
Yeah, hopefully, I mean, also like it's to kind of bring the value to the society.
Absolutely.
I think that's very important to when I make a choice. And then, especially after 2 or 3 years, the whole world is in this pandemic mode. A lot of people really cannot really go outside. They're kind of limited their kind of activities. They have to stay inside, right? So my personally as well, like in the past almost two and a half years, right? I really cannot really go to, I mean, of course, right now, things are kind of back to normal more or less. But that's become a norm where people start to leverage more about this virtual meetings and virtual communication, like, or especially our like working relationship. Like I guess a lot of people who move or change the job in these 2 years, they probably never like really like us right now, like meet in person, right? This is the kind of rare, but it wasn't like normal case. Then this come to like one important about the remote working. I feel during this time period, the whole remote working become much more like critical for a lot of people. This is probably the way they're making a living. And now, I mean, if we think more broadly, if we can make this become more kind of like, I'm not saying like mainstream thing, but a major thing, I think it will benefit beyond what we used to. Like before, we thought people have to move to Silicon Valley, move to United States to get good jobs. But if we make remote working like a good like way of kind of really the way we organize the industry or company, I feel this is probably a way where we can spread the opportunities across the different countries, like different continents. I think that's one layer. The second layer was, okay, it's probably a good match here because Turing is trying to use AI and machine learning to revolutionize this industry, where there's kind of, you need to build a team around this type of talents and trying to find a match between, okay, people who know about machine learning and the actual product or the remote working, the kind of challenges were to resolve. And more importantly, I think now is probably the best timing. The Turing is growing really rapidly, where we're scaling up team, where this is the place where I feel I can contribute most. So that's why I feel I probably can take these opportunities. And more than that, we have also a leadership team, which actually, and I talk a lot even before I joined, which is really something really inspiring and really led me to convince, okay, this is the right team with the right company with the right team. So, I mean, to sum up everything together, that's why I'm here.
Checks all the boxes.
Yeah.
And we are very happy to have you on the team, Kai. So Kai, now that you're at Turing, you're leading a team of AI and machine learning engineers. So can you please share a little bit how Turing is different in how we actually leverage AI to build our platform?
Sure. To put things into context, right? I think right now there's a lot of companies who trying to kind of using AI machine learning, trying to make their business better or trying to say revolution the industry. Turing is unique because I think we talk about remote working because that's something really unique. But on top of that, I think we're trying to optimize for this angle where we try to have the remote, like the talents to match with the best job, like within the kind of United States or like Silicon Valley. And this brings us, so first we focus on building the product itself. I think that's very important. So we don't try to kind of overfit. This is kind of technical term, but we don't really try to say, hey, we are an AI company because we have AI. It's more like we have the product, we found the product and market fit, we start to grow the product. At a certain point, we have enough data, we are having this kind of challenge where the machine learning is probably the best kind of a solution we should kind of invest. Then we start look at the like machine learning or like data talents. We start to build such system so that we can enable our core business. So you see that there's two like cornerstone here. The first part is definitely our products. The second part is our kind of the machine learning engine. We try to make this positive feedback loop interactive between these two pieces. We have better product so that we are able to build a better model or machine learning system. Then the better machine learning system actually fit into our product to make product better. So this positive feedback goes on.
Continuous improvement.
Yeah, that's kind of uniqueness of like Turing. Or I feel whoever can successfully to apply machine learning into the product, this is probably the kind of the best pattern I want to observe.
Got it. And so now that we are talking about this machine learning, how we use machine learning, can you please tell a little bit more about our matching engine, which is a little bit of a secret sauce?
Okay.
How do we actually match that untapped world human potential with the clients and make sure it's a perfect match?
Sure. I think maybe not everyone will kind of understand the whole flow of our kind of how our product works. Maybe we can take a little step here. We can explain how our kind of matching works here. So to put these things into the context right now, so we have a lot of kind of remote talent or developers who join our platform. Basically, they're kind of, we call it talent pool there. On the other hand, that we have a lot of companies who are eager to look for such talents, right? So after they sign up, they can enter some like UI we provide to them, like so-called matching here. So it's like a kind of specialized search engine. So they will bring up their kind of job description. They will have some people from their company normally search for like certain developers. Say they want to look for some developer with like Python developer who knows machine learning. They probably will put these two keywords into the search engine. They try to search for it. Then our like search engine will kind of retrieve relevant kind of developers and rank them based on the job description, or maybe if the developer is available or not, we will give them a kind of a good ranked list. So from there, and we also have very good operational team who will help them to contact with those developers and make the whole experience really kind of end-to-end experience, so that we can deliver kind of a good list of high quality developer to our clients. So this is where kind of the whole like process, right? Now probably can go into the like search engine part.
Got it. And that sounds very fascinating. It's like the magic of AI. So thank you for giving us a glimpse into that. And I guess I wanted to zoom out a little bit now and talk a little bit about the industry overall.
Okay.
How do you feel like the industry has evolved over the past few years in terms of using AI and machine learning? You touched a little bit on that already, but can you give us a little bit of an overview and also maybe predictions for the future?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been kind of in the industry for quite a few years. Okay, but I probably was just speak from my personal experience to see if that makes sense. So to kind of go back to the old days when I just joined Facebook, I think machine learning was kind of really powerful too, but it was definitely not as big as right now. So especially after say 2017, sorry, I think 16, the AlphaGo was a big, really kind of I would say campaign really to have a lot of people who probably didn't know about it, and now it started to become more engaged. And recent years, maybe if you look at our life, you see you have the Tesla car, right? You can tell that the whole kind of self-driving car functionality is becoming better and better. I mean, you can tell that, and also if you have a Siri at home, right? You can actually talk with the Siri sometimes, and there's just all the apps, right? I believe all the apps you're using have certain level of search or recommendation there. And essentially, that I would say that it's a very natural process where the whole machine learning kind of the technology or system start to become part of our life. And also, we also have a lot of debate regarding, if the AI is good or bad. And I think people, if we are interested in the topic, will say, whether we are in a phase where we'll maybe kind of fighting with the generic AI in future. I think there's a lot of awareness around this topic as well. And regarding the industry, I think it's even more interesting because people may think about AI is everywhere, but it's actually a kind of gradual process where it starts with big companies, Google, Facebook, Microsoft. Then once the technology becomes a little mature, right? This kind of other conventional or industry who probably never really thought about this machine learning start to touch this topic. Then we start to do this cycle, right? We start trying this kind of machine learning into their existing business or new business. It starts to kind of like perform okay or better. And then they start to kind of have a larger scale operation around machine learning. Then this goes on. Take Turing for example, right? I feel traditional. There's so many companies doing the outsourcing or like a contractor, right? Now you see like Turing become a kind of using this kind of machine learning, trying to kind of bring this whole industry to the next level. Yeah, disrupt. Yeah, that's a good word. Yeah, exactly. I think that's kind of what I see that like machine learning as a technology start to go into different industry, trying to improve efficiency across different like topics instead of just focus on one part.
And yes, I agree, Kai, and definitely sounds like AI is more important than ever. But on the consumer side, I think it takes a little bit of time getting used to having AI in products like Tesla that you mentioned, self-driving. For me personally, it takes time to build trust with those algorithms. Yes. So Kai, I would like to switch gears a little bit and talk about remote work. At Turing, we claim that the future of work is remote, but there are definitely some challenges that come with it. And what has your experience been? What is different in managing the teams that are globally distributed versus a team where everyone is in the same office?
Sure. I think this topic is very deep, so we probably have to kind of break it down into different parts. So I probably will start with my personal experience. Like even before Turing, I kind of started to do the remote working. So I think immediately benefits of that will be like everyone's work become more flexible. Like for instance, I'm living in the Bay Area. So people who probably are not so aware of like the traffic in Bay Area, normally like for me, it took me like 2 hours just for commute. So
used to in the old days.
Yeah, in the old days. I'm not mentioning that in the office there's a lot of kind of cross communication. There's a lot of distraction. Remote can actually remove all of it. It's actually help you to really focus on what matters most because you are in your own space. It's like you are doing meditation in a way where it kind of focuses on the most important part of work. You start thinking about what are the unnecessary part if you don't have to do it, because remote can make some part of communication harder, but actually makes the core communication easier because without the tools we have. So that's one part. And also one thing I realized was people are trained to do the remote after these 2 years. I feel so historically, people may still tend to do the in-person more. Nowadays, I feel things become more balanced where either remote or in-person people are more open to that. I think that's kind of the premise before I joined Turing. So after I joined Turing, I realized a great level of kind of freedom, I will put it this way. It's like I used to work with people like most people like from Bay Area or United States, right? Even I have some coworker overseas, but it's more like a short run. So like short term, maybe you work on something together for a few months, then that's probably it. Or you mostly talk about some high level things. But now I work with the fully decentralized team on a daily basis. I have coworkers from all the countries, probably like from India, Pakistan, Brazil, Argentina, or from Europe. And that's very different feeling if you do it on a daily basis. But if you organize a company in this way, a remote working way, if you think about the company is fully remote, you actually can do it. And I would say that there's a great level of benefits of doing that. We can even go to that part. But I'll pause here because I feel I kind of covered a few points already.
So Kai, sounds like you are managing a team that's fully remote. And do you find that there are some cultural differences that are in the way of productivity, or is it actually helping productivity of the team?
I think there's kind of learning curve here, I would say. Like when I started, I realized people are not really kind of just with the same background. Like for me, like even like we have all the people who coming from all over the world to a Bay Area, but after time people are kind of learning the similar pattern. And now in Turing, actually, people didn't really have such kind of, they don't have to move here, they still live where they want to live. So yes, I clearly see the difference. One simple thing will be there's time zone difference, right? And every day, like in the morning, my morning time, maybe this is afternoon in Europe, maybe this is nighttime in like Asia. So we have kind of overcome that part. That's kind of the difference. And also there's holidays, right? So in a normal company, right? People will kind of like follow the similar like holiday kind of patterns. Okay, we will take this off. Nowadays, we have like coworkers from all the countries, right? You really cannot enforce that. You probably need to be more flexible. I think that's one part. But also, on the other hand, like flexibility actually brings more benefits. One part will be you actually have a coverage across ocean. Like it's like 24/7. I mean, not 24/7, but like you get what I say. I think the other part will be people will have different perspective. Like because we are building a product for people around the world, actually we need that like insights in our data operation. If we kind of become narrow-minded, we just have people from one part of the world, we probably don't understand the pinpoints of what we're building, all our clients. But having everyone from different countries bring different perspective, we're actually trying to do this kind of optimization or incremental optimization all the way including where when we design the product, when we actually optimize the product, or when we talk with our clients. We have this type of kind of compassion or kind of we understand what we are working on. I think this is really exactly why we should do this. Yeah, I think
that's a great point, Kai. I think it just makes us a more open-minded organization.
Yeah.
And that's open to more ideas. And it's quite amazing. It wasn't possible before the whole remote work, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I think this is also important where there's so many talents around different countries, but historically they have to move to certain like location, right, or cities. Now they can just stay whatever they want. I feel this will give everyone more freedom. Of course, things come with trade-off, but I would say the benefits right now is clearly overweight the kind of the downside of it.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And then speaking of remote work, you mentioned that processes and tools are extremely important in making the teams productive. So what are your favorite tools to manage remote teams?
Sure. I think in terms of tools, there's I guess everyone probably started to use like Zoom, Slack, Confluence, or Calendarly. I mean, there's a set of tools where you bridge the gap here, where you want to talk with someone, you want to kind of message someone. There's and also like a Google, like all the Google Suite, right? You have documents, you have slides. I think those are kind of the tools where we use for communication. I think to take a step back, where whatever tool can enable you to do the communication better, I think that's where those two can really serve you best. Of course, everyone will have some preference, but that's my list.
So Kai, besides the tools, what are other things that you think are really important to build and effectively lead engineering teams globally?
Sure. I think there's two, like also like a few parts of it, but like we can try to go to the first part because the major difference of currently building a team at Turing or compared with a traditional organization is really the team is remote and decentralized. Then essentially that we need to kind of think a lot around that topic. I mean, a few things I can think about just specifically on this one, right? So because probably through the whole career in this company, you probably won't be able to meet someone in person, right? So how you can build the trust across like different team members or across different teams, I feel like the company culture and value is kind of the first step. Where when you do the recruiting or you're trying to onboarding new people or we work on a daily basis, we should work around a common set of values or kind of company goals, priorities. I feel that's important. To enable that, I think transparency is super important because nowadays we don't have the carrot chat like what we used to have in the office, right? But then if we can be really transparent to an extent where people can understand each other, why we are doing this or doing that, I think that's very important. People will understand why we are doing certain project or we are trying to not to do something. That's important. Doing something or not do something, both are equally important. I think that's one part. And the other part will be because we don't have the kind of 8 hours per day in the office, we probably can focus more about kind of the outcome or the kind of what will the impact we should deliver. I think this a few things I can share regarding this topic.
So Kai, you mentioned how culture is important to building an effective engineering organization. Do you have like any tips on how to actually build a unifying culture in this remote first world?
Sure. I think I would speak based on my experience. So I think, of course, a large portion of them comes from the older generation of the experience. Basically, how the team lead or the in general company kind of leaders, they used to build effective. They probably can still apply a large portion of it into a new kind of context. But we should think about more than that. So think about okay, maybe you are hiring people from different countries. First thing will be we need to respect each other about the kind of our differences. Then we seek for the common shared value of it. Okay, if we join the same company, like say for Turing instance, we try to serve our clients, our kind of remote developers the best. Then we can try to achieve, okay, if we want to do that, like we probably have a better product, we need to have better metrics, better models, we will align on that front. And then from there, we probably will think ahead, okay, what are the pinpoints of kind of we need to address? Then we will be aligned regarding those things. And of course, in between, we will try to build the trust along the way. I mean, we will try, as I mentioned, the transparency, right? Here, sometimes we probably will do a little bit over communication. Like a lot of times, what I saw from our data exercise will be sometimes if this is a really important topic, right? We will try to emphasize it a few times more than the typical case because that's how we kind of making sure everyone can be aligned. And then on top of that, just focus on the actual like impact instead of okay data exercise. What are you doing? That's probably still important, but giving even there's time no difference. You don't have the sense of kind of synchronize. And what I try to say will be we need asynchronous communication, asynchronous planning, but in the end, everyone will come together, will deliver things together. I think that's a few principles I normally feel will be effective in our daily operation.
Thank you, Kai. Those are great tips for aspiring leaders. And you as a leader, you mentioned that learning is extremely important for you and you're constantly learning. What can you please share with our listeners? What are you currently learning?
Sure. I mean, for this topic, I'm actually quite a kind of, I would like to share a few things. I think on different levels, right? Today we talk about a lot of like AI and machine learning, right? I think there's a bunch of good content online where we actually, these days, I think it's much easier than before to really learn about what's really happening. I probably can leave some kind of tips if I have a video about this and probably leave a few links there. It's about, okay, maybe fundamentals about machine learning, maybe how we're gonna learn the state of art machine learning in that way.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. On top of that, also I like to watch a lot of podcasts regarding what's really going on, as you mentioned, right? Keep exploring, keep learning. There's quite a few things really trying to give you a sense of what's really happening across different industry, where I probably also can leave some links about that. Or if you're really kind of interested about learning what we are doing at Turing, I will probably leave my LinkedIn link there. And also you can check our website. We have a lot of content from Turing.com. You can really learn what the new features or things we're working on. Or if you feel okay, you want to explore a set of new opportunities, just sign up on our website, and we probably help you to find a better kind of a company or new opportunities along the line. I think that's a few things probably I can share.
Those are great things, and thank you for sharing those. So Kai, this has been an extremely exciting, wide-ranging conversation. Thank you so much for joining, and we are hoping to see you in the next episodes.
Yes, thanks, Arina. Thanks for having me here. It was a really kind of interesting talk through the whole thing. Yeah.
Especially having it in person. It was exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kai. Have a nice day.
You too.